We went on bike rides and climbed a bridge. Then we went to like 10 different zoos. So it was just a lot of walking, sightseeing. I don't really like that. I think it's a waste of time. You can just go on the internet and look at that stuff, to be honest.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. And today's Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast is also brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Go to ziprecruiter.com/LOFB to use it for free. My name is Josh Lloyd and you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. You can find me on Instagram at redrock_bball, facebook.com/redrockbasketball, and you can support the show at patreon.com/redrock_bball. We are here to talk about the NBA draft lottery today. We're going to talk about the demolition that was game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. We're going to do a DFS preview of an odd slate, which is the game 1 Eastern Conference Finals slate / game 3 in the Golden State San Antonio series, even though there is a game 2 of the Eastern Conference in the middle. So we'll be having a game 1, game 3 slate, and then a game 2, game 3 slate as well, most likely across the DFS sites, because the next 2 games are both Eastern Conference Finals games on Wednesday and Friday, and on the Thursday in the middle, we don't have any games. So that's the way that these DFS slates look like they're going to be shaking out. If you are watching this on video, you can see that I am wearing my Take That for Data t-shirt. I'll hold it up. It arrived. Thank you very much. Once again, it goes to Keith from the Fast Break Breakfast podcast over on the Step Back. Go and listen to Keith. You can follow him on Twitter at Fast Break Break, or Fast Break Break, I guess, if you want to say breakfast, but Fast Break Break. Keith went to that Grizzlies game, got me the Take That for Data t-shirt. He also got me these pretty cool looking Grizzlies sunglasses that I'm wearing, yellow frames, which you can see on the video. I'm about to take them off, but I thought I'd wear them. He got me those from the playoff game. That was pretty cool. He also got me what we would call a stubby holder, which I believe you guys in the States call a koozie, a beer koozie, maybe. We call it a stubby holder. So I've got my Believe Memphis stubby holder there. So thank you for that, Keith. Oh, he also got me some stickers, so I'll hold it up as promotion for his show too. Sorry for that. I should have had that ready. He got me this, he sent me a nice little Fast Break Breakfast sticker. So thank you, Keith, for getting me this gear, this Take That for Data t-shirt is obviously, and it's really comfortable. Going to be a prized possession for me moving forward, so I do appreciate that a lot. Obviously, we've got a lot to talk about today, so
let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. Before we get into talking about the actual games that were played or the games that are going to be played, let's talk NBA draft lottery, because obviously that went down today 10 minutes before game 2 tipped off, even though ESPN was dragging it out for what seemed a very long time. I guess they've got to fill in half an hour of action. Some of the pre-lottery stuff on ESPN was questionable, to say the least. To say that, the Sixers have got a chance to bring in two top 4 picks, and they're showing a supposed starting lineup. But they could have Simmons, they could have Embiid, they could have Jahlil Okafor starting at power forward, and I just went, cool. You guys have no idea what you're talking about whatsoever. And yeah, so that was that. So that frustrated me. Jahlil Okafor is not a starting player, and he's not a forward. But they called him a starting forward, so that was always great news. And that was some of the bullshit that we had to sit through while they also called their other point guard Sergio Fernandez instead of Spanish Chocolate Sergio Rodriguez. So that was another thing that went live to air on that ESPN pre-game or pre-lottery drawing. I'm sure most of you already know how the lottery played out, but for those of you who don't, and you want to hear it said in a semi-sexy Australian accent, here is the way that the 2017 draft lottery played out. At pick 14, we have the Miami Heat. At pick 13, the Denver Nuggets. That's all according to plan. Detroit Pistons at 12, Charlotte at 11, Sacramento at 10, which came from the New Orleans Pelicans as part of that DeMarcus Cousins trade. Dallas at 9, and then we had the change in the lottery, as the Kings were now scheduled to pick at pick 8, but that pick moved up. So the Knicks moved down to 8, the Timberwolves moved down to 7, The Magic moved down to 6. And then the Kings came up at pick 5, which was the Philadelphia 76ers pick, because they had that pick swap from the Stauskas trade a couple of years ago. So the Kings end up getting pick 5 and pick 10 in the draft lottery. At pick 4, the Phoenix Suns, they moved down from having the second best draft lottery odds to being out of that top 3 and finishing 4th. So they probably had the worst result out of anybody in the draft. I'm sure that the Suns fans and Matt Smith would not be too impressed with that, but they moved down to 4th. The top 3 then consisted of the Philadelphia 76ers taking that Sacramento pick, which was that swap, so they would have had the 5th pick, and they swapped with Sacramento into number 3. The Los Angeles Lakers pick at number 2 for the 3rd consecutive season, and the Boston Celtics, courtesy of that pick swap with the Brooklyn Nets, they pick at number 1. Now, the title of today's podcast is Rigged with a question mark. I'm not actually asking that question, because if you think that it's rigged, I don't know what to tell you. You are 100% wrong. It is as simple as that. I really dislike conspiracy theories, especially people who go and who don't know shit about anything, really. Spout off, the NBA is rigged, the finals are rigged, the playoff matchups are rigged, the lottery's rigged, everything's rigged according to all these numbnuts. It's not rigged. It is as simple as that. Yes, it doesn't look great for the 2 most storied franchises in the NBA to get pick number 1 and pick number 2. But you know who had the greatest odds of getting pick number 1? The Celtics. And they got pick number 1. Cool. What's so riggy about that? Yes, the Lakers had the 4th best odds and they came in 2nd. Oh well. That's just part of the odds that go down. That's just what happens. Well, not so forth. They had the 3rd best odds. They moved up from 3rd to 2nd. Is that really an indication of them being rigged? No, it's not. So this thing is not rigged in any sense. Playoff games aren't rigged. Playoff matchups aren't rigged. Game results aren't rigged. Draft picks aren't rigged. Free agency isn't rigged. Draft lotteries isn't rigged. There's no rigging. Do you know how hard it would be to pull off any sort of conspiracy rigging with referees, with lottery? It would be impossible. There's not one bloke just sitting there doing everything. You have tens, hundreds of people all involved in all these aspects, and keeping them all silent, especially when they're not on there as lifetime appointments, they're moving on, they're getting other jobs. It's impossible. It's just literally impossible for this to be rigged. The Celtics got the number 1 pick. They had the best odds of getting the number 1 pick. The Lakers had the 3rd best odds. They got the 2nd pick. Hardly a turn up for the books. Yes, it's very fortunate the Lakers didn't have to give up their first rounder this year or their 2019 first rounder, and the fact that they've had the number 2 pick for the last 3 years, but they've been shit for the last 3 years. That's how come they've got the number 2 pick in that time. They still have to give up a 2018 unprotected first to Philadelphia, which could very well be the number 2 pick again. It could be the number 3. It could be the number 6 pick. None of this stuff is rigged, and it was always frustrating seeing people talk about it and saying that it's rigged, and of course it's just bullshit. That's as simple as it is. A couple of other things that need to be mentioned here. Trading of players is the immediate thing that comes out after, there's mock drafts that come out after the draft lottery, and then trading. And I got into some arguments with people, way prior to the lottery about, if the Suns get picked 2, Eric Bledsoe's getting traded immediately. And I'm like, why? Oh, because I'll pick Lonzo Ball. It's cool. That to me is a ridiculous mindset. And I'll tell you why. Because now you're getting the takes and you're seeing it published from as genuine reports. And this is not just wild speculation, because GMs are dumb. Numerous GMs are dumb. Some of them are very smart. Some of them are very dumb. But people saying that D'Angelo Russell could be traded now. And I'll tell you why the reason I think it, you can disagree with me, fine with that. To tell you why the reason I think it's dumb is because we're assuming that the Lakers pick Lonzo Ball at number 2, which I don't even think is necessarily the right decision, but that's not neither here or there. Trading D'Angelo Russell because you're going to pick, or you will pick, Lonzo Ball at number 2, how do you know that Lonzo Ball is going to work out? 2 years ago, when you picked D'Angelo Russell in exactly the same situation, how confident were you that he was going to be the answer at point guard? He was your new franchise stud, your new all-star point guard. Very confident is the answer. When you picked Brandon Ingram at number 2 last year and he was going to be the next Kevin Durant and he was your next future All-Star and it's the best pick the Lakers could have got. We got one of the 2 studs in this draft class. Now, not so much. Picking number 2, picking anywhere in the draft is not a guarantee of anything. And that's not to say Russell is going to be great or that Russell is going to be better than Ball or that Ball is going to be better than Russell. Because I don't know. You don't know. Magic Johnson doesn't know. Rob Lowe doesn't know. These guys don't know. So unless you get a great offer for D'Angelo, which could happen, but if you sell him at a really low value, what is the point? What if Lonzo comes in and you trade D'Angelo and Lonzo plays at the same level that D'Angelo Russell has played the last 2 years? And let's remember, being a point guard as a 19-year-old in the NBA is bloody hard. It is very, very hard, and it takes point guards a long time to get comfortable and to really start to develop. So Lonzo comes in and he's shit, which is a massive possibility given that there's no good players really around him on that team. Then what then? Why wouldn't you keep Russell, keep Ball, play Ball at the 1, play Russell at the 2, play Clarkson as the 6th man, have a 3-guard rotation between those 3 guys, and work it out from there. Lonzo can play a little bit off the ball at times and shoot a bit. Russell showed that he can do a little bit off the ball as well. Clarkson can mix and match with these guys. To me, it's the no-brainer of solutions. But trading Russell for the 10th pick in the draft or a 15th pick or some other bullshit package of assets when you have absolutely no idea what Ball is going to be and you won't know for 3 or 4 years is a ludicrous decision. You don't even know what you've got in Russell yet. And that's why this trading of players thing is baffling to me. The next thing, and this was something that was brought up to me by a good friend of mine, Olgun Ulich, who was on the podcast last year, who is the head basketball writer for Fox Sports Australia. He is a scout, and he's everything you want to know about any Australian prospect. Olgun is deeply embedded in the Australian basketball scene. He knows lots about all other scouts and prospects across the world, but any Australian guys, Olgun is the guy to go to. But he brought this up to me yesterday, and he had an NBA scout mention this to him, saying that when was the last time that the top 2 picks in an NBA draft were All-Stars? So pick 1 and pick 2 were All-Stars. When was the last time that happened? And I went, shit. I don't know. And so I had to think about it, had to have a look back. And the answer to that question is 1999, when Elton Brand and Steve Francis were the top 2 picks in the 1999 draft. And the reason that is important to take into consideration is if you're assuming that Fultz and Ball are these 2 studs, we've got Lonzo, let's get rid of D'Angelo, it's solving everything. The chances of him becoming, or both of those guys becoming All-Stars, is very, very slim. The last 2 guys to do it don't play in the NBA at all anymore. Elton Brand and Steve Francis, they don't play anymore. They're the last 2 number 1 and number 2 picks to be All-Stars. Now, Andrew Wiggins and Jabari Parker might become that group of guys. Maybe D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns becomes those guys. But as it stands, we're talking 18 years ago was the last time that the number 1 and number 2 picks from a draft worked out as All-Stars. Meaning that even if you've got a top 2 pick, it doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean that you're nailing a pick. It doesn't mean that you're getting a star. So having 2 number 2 pick point guards and working out what happens for the next 2 years is probably a lot smarter than saying, well, let's get rid of the other one after 2 years and the guy's 21 years old and get it for some middling prospect or way lower down potential guy is asinine, in my opinion. If you all disagree with that, I'm always all ears to hear it, but that's the way that I view all of that. And I thought that was an astounding stat, that the last time that the first 2 picks in an NBA draft were All-Stars was 18 years ago. The other interesting things coming in this lottery, I think, is what Philadelphia does. Now, it appears that Fultz is a guarantee for 1, and Ball is probably going to go at 2. I'm not sure that I would take him there, but I think that's what's happening. For Philadelphia, what do? Do they take Josh Jackson? Do they take Jason Tatum? Malik Monk? De'Aaron Fox? I don't really see Fox there. They've already got a point guard who can't shoot in Ben Simmons. Dennis Smith, who I think is real interesting at number 3. It's very risky, but I think that's real interesting. Remember that the Sixers are probably going to be starting, at this point, Simmons at the point guard position, Covington at the 3, Šarić at the 4, Embiid at the 5 with that big opening in the backcourt somewhere. So does Smith go there? Does Monk go there? I don't think Fox could go there, but do they add Josh Jackson and just see how this works out and start Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot and run Jackson off the bench for a year or two and see what happens with him and Covington? Do they take Tatum as an additional scorer, which I think is a great option as well? Jackson picked up his three-point shooting late in the season. Does that really help them? They are the real interesting focal point of this draft. The Suns will be pretty happy, I think, with any of those guys that they get there, whether they're either going to get Jackson or Tatum, and I think that's exactly what they need, is one of those two guys, and I can see that's the move that Phoenix makes there. And Sacramento will be pretty happy to have 5 or 10, because they'll get a point guard, they'll get Fox, they'll get Smith, they'll get Ntilikina, they'll get one of those 3 guys at pick 5, and then they should be able to get a guy like Jonathan Isaac perhaps at pick 10, which would be a great situation for them. The Magic will look at a guard, I would say, at 6, Monk or Smith or Ntilikina, and the Knicks at 8. If they can have Frank fall to them there, I think they would love that. And the Timberwolves, they could be the guy that goes after, say, Jason Tatum if he perhaps falls, or John Isaac at that spot as well. So there is a lot of different permutations and combinations that can go down with this a little bit. Philadelphia, to me, at pick 6 at this point is the real interesting one, with so many different directions that they can go. I'm looking forward to digging into all this stuff a little bit more and speaking to more draft people and more people with connections to scouts, and just to hear a little bit more information about how it feels. Again, it feels like the top 2 picks are going to go that way. I'm not sure I would do that as the Lakers, but it appears that it will be the way that it goes. And then Philadelphia becomes that real intriguing option at number 3. But that's how I view it. That's how I view the trading of picks. That's how I view rigging. You would have heard all these thoughts from me plenty of times before. But yeah, it's even the same thing in Boston. What do we do with Isaiah Thomas now? Well, you just wait. What do we do with Avery Bradley? We just wait. What do we do with Marcus Smart? Well, I love Marcus Smart, but develop Marcus Smart into a 3 if you need to. He can defend all those spots. You just wait. Unless a sensational offer comes and Vlade Divac is calling you, you wait. And you see what these guys can offer, but you are not in a rush to go and get rid of good players. Bradley, Fultz, Thomas, Brown, Crowder. Maybe you get rid of Crowder. Who knows? There are a number of things that can happen, but I just don't believe that just because you trade this guy or just because you draft this guy that you trade away other guys on your roster immediately. Again, these players are not guaranteed to work out. There is no guarantee in the NBA. For as good as these guys look, there is absolutely 100% no guarantee in all of this stuff. They are my thoughts on the draft lottery. We're going to be doing more draft stuff as we move through the months of May and June. Reminder that we will be starting the season in review series of podcasts this week with the Nets. Probably only do 1 or 2 of them this week, and then get stuck into more of them when this, at least when this Warriors-Spurs series is over, because it doesn't look like it's going to last all that long. And that will be at some time towards the end of next week, it looks like. So we'll be getting into more of those then. All right. Let's talk about today's sponsor. Great to have them back on board, and that is ZipRecruiter. It's playoff time, and having the right players on the court will be the key to success for any team still left in the NBA playoffs. That sharp outside shooter or powerful rebounder can be a difference between winning and losing, and business isn't any different. Your company needs the right people to be the best. So where do you go to find the top talent? There's no draft for accountants. There's no draft for logistics managers. I'm trying to think of other professions. There's no draft for pharmacists. So you've got to go to a place like ZipRecruiter. You can't find all the best candidates just by posting your job on one site. You need to post to all the top job sites. And now you can with ZipRecruiter. At ZipRecruiter.com, you can post your job to 100 plus job sites with one click. And then with their powerful technology, efficiently matching you to the right person for your position. That's why it's different. Unlike the other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them. In fact, over 80% of jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. No worries about juggling emails or calls to your office. Simply screen, rate, and manage the candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. Find out now why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes nationwide. And right now, my listeners can start forming their own winning team on ZipRecruiter for free. Yes, it's free. Go to ziprecruiter.com/LOFB. That's ziprecruiter.com/LOFB. Try it for free today at ziprecruiter.com/LOFB. Let's get stuck into trying to work out what actually went down in today's game between the San Antonio Spurs and the Golden State Warriors. And I'll tell you what went down. It was an ass kicking. It was an ass kicking of the highest order, 136 to 100 by the Golden State Warriors. So looking at the minutes is a really tough task, especially with guys going in and out of lineups all over the place. For the Spurs, there was no Kawhi Leonard, so John Simmons started. And he scored 22 in his 26 minutes and didn't do it at a hyper-efficient rate. He was at 47%, but it wasn't one of those nights where he's shooting 72 or 73 and you go, shit, that's entirely unsustainable. Now, of course, if Kawhi is back, him getting 17 shots is unsustainable. But it's a weird situation where John Simmons has 17 shots, and that's the most on the team. Second highest, Kyle Anderson. Just a weird series of events. Now, I like Kyle Anderson. I like what he did. He had 8, 5, and 4 in 26 minutes, so expect a similar level of production in Game 3 if Kawhi happens to sit. LaMarcus Aldridge was putrid, as he's been numerous times throughout the playoffs, 8, 4, and 3, and Greg Popovich called him out in the press conference after the game in his 27 minutes. Well, DeJounte Murray, 8, 7, and 6 with 4 steals in 27 minutes. He is going to be good, and he is going to be a starting point guard for the Spurs. I don't believe that Pat Mills is a starting point guard. And I think that DeJounte Murray, if Parker hadn't got injured, by the time the 2018 season rolled along, he would be the starting point guard. I don't know what to make of that now, but I've liked what we've seen from him so far. Mills struggled, 5 points in 21 minutes. Dan Green played just the 17. But what we did get, and this is something that excited me, it was back. The Undertaker, Dwayne Dedmon. Prior to Game 1, I mentioned that I thought the Spurs had to play Dedmon because Pau Gasol can't play against the Warriors. He had 16 minutes here, Pau, and had 7 and 8. David Lee can't play against the Warriors. He had 2 and 2 in 5 minutes. Dedmon played 20 minutes, had 9 and 9, and didn't shoot the ball well, which is not something that is normally associated with Dedmon. He was just 3 of 9 from the field. So it could have been a much bigger night from Dedmon. Does this lock him in? And he was in early. This wasn't just fourth quarter minutes from Dedmon. He was in, and I'll say that the game was over in the first quarter, but he was in the first quarter. 20 minutes for Dedmon. Does this push him into a 10-minute or so role a game, as he should? Because Lee shouldn't play, and Gasol should play minimally in this series. And I think you see a bit more Dedmon if Kawhi is out. And if Kawhi is in, they'll play a little bit smaller around Aldridge, but it was good to see him back in, and he was effective in the playing time that he was out there. Manu did not play a single second in the second half, only 5 minutes for the game, as they sort of shut up shop early and said, let's just save Manu for Game 3 now. 2 points in his 5 minutes. So it was a total shit show, really, when you're looking at this game and trying to figure out what went on. For the Warriors, there was no Andre Iguodala. They had Zaza Pachulia leave the game after 7 minutes due to a heel contusion. His status is unknown for Game 3 at this point. And then late in the game, Draymond Green had to sit out with back stiffness. That is not a big issue. He will play in Game 3. I don't think there's any, unless some news has come out since I've started rambling about the lottery, I don't think we're going to have any issue about Draymond Green moving forward. With Andre Iguodala out, I said I wouldn't be expecting Matt Barnes to do a huge amount. I thought Shawnee Livingston would get the bulk of those minutes, but it turns out they went with my boy Pat McCaw, who played 27 minutes and had 18, 3, and 5 with 3 threes and 3 steals. Now, unlike John Simmons, the scoring from McCaw came on 75% shooting, something that's unrealistic, but this is something I've been saying since the day that McCaw was drafted. He is going to be the Andre Iguodala replacement. Now, whether Iggy comes back in free agency or not, he's old, and in 2-3 years' time, McCaw is going to be Iguodala, and we saw that today. This should give all you guys in Dynasty Leagues a real indication of what you can expect from McCaw moving forward. Steph was great, 29, 7, and 7 with 6 triples and 3 steals, while Draymond had 13, 9, and 6, and Durant had 16, 2, and 3. This was also the situation that I mentioned could be a concern in the DFS slates if this was a massive blowout and all of these Warriors studs played limited minutes, which is exactly what happened. Now, Shawnee Livingston only got the 13 minutes, but was still good. 10 points with 3 assists and 2 steals. But we just had the entire bench get emptied. Matty Barnes played a lot in the second half with Zaza out. In fact, he started the second half. So we don't know the status of Iguodala or Pachulia for Game 3 on Saturday. And you would expect that we're going to see more McCaw. You see a little bit more McGee and some more Barnes if those two blokes happen to be out. I'm not really concerned at all about Draymond Green, but you have to be worried about Iggy and about Zaza as well, and that will open those Pat McCaw minutes up. It'll open some Ian Clark minutes up. It'll open some Matty Barnes up and some JaVale McGee as well. We talked yesterday on the podcast about Cleveland and Boston. So I'm not going to rehash all that, aside from at the end of this show when I just give a quick rundown of this Wednesday-Saturday slate. What we're going to do now is have a bit of a preview of Game 3 of Golden State San Antonio, because, as I said, this is included in this Wednesday-Saturday slate. Now, be real careful about playing in this slate because of the uncertainty of guys. We don't know if Kawhi will play. We don't know if Iguodala will play. We don't know if Zaza will play, and that changes a lot of things. Big Kyle Anderson bump, big John Simmons bump, big DeJounte Murray bump, big Pat McCaw bump, big Matt Barnes bump, big Sean Livingston bump. Lots of things can change. And we are 5 days away, four days away? My maths is bad. 4 days away from that Game 3. So you can be setting your lineups with Cleveland and Boston guys, fine. But working out where you want to go in cash, especially for these Warriors guys, is Kawhi in or out? What does that do to Steph and KD? How does that go with Simmons and Anderson? All these guys, there's so much uncertainty. So plugging a cash lineup with any of those guys is going to be real tough to do. You're better off going with Mills and Aldridge as your only real certainties in the Spurs one, and probably Simmons. And for the Warriors, it's real hard. Do you get 38 minutes of Steph or do you get 28? Same with Durant, same with Draymond. How does all this pan out? So using those guys in cash games across this Wednesday-Saturday slate is tough, but using them in GPPs is going to be, it's going to be a real skill trying to work out exactly who it is that you want to go into your lineup with all these different injuries. So let's look at how the prices look for some of these guys, and really they're pretty much the same as what they were for today. So we're liking Shawnee Livingston at 1,500 again. Especially if Andre Iguodala happens to be up. But even if Iguodala plays, 1,500 for Sean Livingston is a decent price tag, especially with some uncertainty regarding how many minutes Steph Curry actually plays. So I like Shawnee Livingston at 1,500. Steph's at 10,000 on FanDuel, which is not the greatest price. Yes, he was good today, but again, the minutes are the real concern. He's at 9,100 over on DraftKings, so that's a better option for Curry, and I do like him over on DraftKings. And even if it becomes a blowout, I think he can at least approach that level of production over on DraftKings, where it's not the same for him over on FanDuel. Pat Mills at 5,200 didn't do a huge amount, where he's at 55 on DraftKings. I'm not feeling that strongly about that. I would rather go with a Thomas or Kyrie pairing with a Livingston and spending up at some of those other slots. At shooting guard, Ginobili at 3,000. Well, he did nothing today. I expect a lot more out of him in Game 3, so I think he's fine to go back to at $3,000. While Clay at 7,100, we still can't rely upon that. That's obviously just a tournament type play, and 6,000 for him over on DraftKings for Klay Thompson still doesn't feel like something I want to automatically lock into as being an awesome situation. Of course, Pat McCaw at $2,000 on FanDuel, on DraftKings is an awesome play, and that is a great GPP option. At 3,500 for Pat on FanDuel, not quite as good, but still, if of course Iguodala is out, that's got some significant value attached to it. At small forward, we're looking. I wouldn't want to be looking at Iguodala regardless, although his price has dropped to 4,746 on DraftKings, so that gets a little bit more interesting. But still, I don't really see it there for him. Durant at 10,000. There's the risk associated with that, given the blowout potential, and 10-1 on DraftKings the same. It does worry me. While Kawhi at 11,000, and of course Kawhi at 9,400 on DraftKings looks super sexy. But if he doesn't play, then that's 9,400 wasted. It could work out really well at 9,400 if he is ready to go, but he is currently listed as questionable. They are 2-0 down. Does Pop play him at all in this series? If I had to say anything, I would say yes, and I would think Kawhi plays, but I'm not 100% on that. And I do like him much more on DraftKings, where he comes in at the 9,400. John Simmons at 43 looks like pretty much a no-brainer. To me, even if Kawhi is in, I like Simmons at that 4,300. He's at 52 on DraftKings, so I'm less locked into him there, but I can still see using that as a cash play, but I do like it as one of the very few cash plays in this game over on FanDuel. At power forward, Draymond's at 86. I'm not worried about his back. I think that's okay to go to. While LaMarcus at 8,000, there are better options than LaMarcus Aldridge at 8,000, especially given the way that Draymond Green's been dealing with him. He's at 76 on DraftKings, so a little bit of a price rise, and you would expect some sort of a bounce back from Aldridge in Game 3, and I would feel okay about using him in cash on DraftKings without a massive amount of confidence, but I would feel okay about it. The centers, this is a little bit of an unknown. I hate Pau Gasol at 6,100. I want absolutely nothing to do with that. He's at 5,000 on DraftKings, and I still am not a massive fan. The Undertaker is at 2,000. Dwayne Dedman played a good role today. Definitely one to sneak into a tournament because, as I said, he needs to play against this Warriors team. He needs to play more than David Lee. He needs to play similar to Pau Gasol, if not more, especially if Kawhi Leonard happens to be out. I think you're going to see some more Dwayne Dedman, so that is something that you can pay some attention to. He's at 2,300 on DraftKings and 2,000 on FanDuel. And DeJounte Murray is the other guy who gets that bump if Kawhi is out. 2,600 for DeJounte on FanDuel and 35 on DraftKings. So obviously the FanDuel pricing for DeJounte Murray is super appealing for him in a tournament. If Zaza happens to be out, at 4,000 he's not really super great anyway. JaVale McGee's the other guy you look at, but he's also at 4,000. So I don't feel great about JaVale being able to smash through 4,000. At 2,300, I'd say, yeah, that's brilliant. And I would want lots of it. But at 4,000, for him to get to that value, you need Zaza out, and then you need JaVale to do something great. And that's two variables that I'm not necessarily all that comfortable with relying upon at this point. Obviously, Matty Barnes is the other guy who gets somewhat of a bump if both Iguodala and Zaza happens to be out. I wouldn't be putting a huge amount of faith on Barnes. As I said, he barely played at all in that first half and got in on the second when Zaza was out, with Pat McCaw getting all those Iguodala minutes, as he damn well should. We are a long way away, so just, again, be careful with your cash games of looking at this slate, because it is a long way away. 4 days away, and 3 significant injury question marks that can change things is a big deal. Now, if we want to look at the overall slate in general, I'm liking Shawnee Livingston at 1,500, and Jaylen Brown at 21 is more of a tournament play, but we can see what happens with that Celtics lineup. Do they decide to go and start Jaylen? I doubt it, but they could at 2,100. It's still more a tournament guy. Really love Tristan Thompson at 51. Really love Marcus Smart at 51. And 92 for Isaiah Thomas on FanDuel. All this is, that's pretty strong. Don't love Kevin Love at 75, and I'm not the strongest Al Horford fan at 8,000, just given that pricing, while we can look at guys like Jay Crowder at 63 and LeBron at 12.5. I love LeBron at 12.5. As I said yesterday, I think that you're getting 55 or 60 at least out of LeBron or James. If we have a look over on DraftKings now, a little bit different because the pricing is different. Yeah, Steph and Clay come more into play there. 91 for Steph and 6,000 for Clay. Kevin Love at 69.
Giggity.
Is more in play there as well, while Al Horford at 71 also gets an increase. Kyle Korver becomes a more enticing GPP option. He had 30 points in that game 4 against the Raptors, and he's at 3,100, while Isaiah at 88. These are all strong-ish options, with some of them more leaning towards tournaments like Clay and Kyle Korver there. Kawhi's 9,400 is a great tournament play, assuming he's ready to go, but we don't know. But at that price, it's good. I like Smart at 5,000 and Kelly Olynyk down at 4,200. He won't repeat what he did in Game 7. That's fairly certain. But at 4,200, he can very comfortably get 25 points in 20 minutes, and I'd be okay with that sort of a return, especially in a matchup where the defense is not great from the Cavs, and I expect that Olynyk will be able to do something at that sort of a price tag without labeling him as a lock or a must roster guy or anything along those lines. Of course, we still love LeBron at 12,000 on DraftKings, and Jay Crowder at 6 is a decently solid option also. All right. Again, it's a real hard slate to play. Minimize your exposure, especially to that Game 3 Golden State San Antonio, which heads back to San Antonio, because we don't know the status of so many guys, and that is going to influence a lot of things. Tell me what you think about my takes on the lottery, about what your team, or what you want your team to do in the lottery. I'm always interested to hear those things. We're going to be doing more draft stuff as the months roll on, just to get a look at some of these prospects. I've done all my preliminary projections for the players, not based on team that they go to. So that's interesting to get an early look ahead at some of that stuff. And if you want any, if you want to ask me any specific questions about how some of those guys project, hit me up, and I can give you some brief preliminary information that I've found from them so far. Go and follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball, and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, on Google Play, on Stitcher, and on TuneIn. And don't forget to check out our sponsor, ZipRecruiter.com/LOFB, where you can try it for free. We are done here, guys. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Lonzo Ball.